Boom. Haha. Boom, Bitcoiners. How are you? How are you? Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to all of my Bitcoiners. Yes, happy Saturday. I don't know if it's morning for you. It could be wee hours of the morning for you in Asia. It could be evening for you if you're in my part of the world. Wherever you are, welcome, guys. Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, yeah. Come on in. I see you piling in, guys. Boom. I love it. I see you piling in. Good night, guys. Good night. Yes. I love it. India is in the house. India. I mean, I could check really fast, but day trader, just tell us what time it is in India right now. I don't know what time it is in India right now, off the top of my head or what have you. But welcome, guys. Welcome. I hope, listen to me. I hope you don't mind me having glasses on. I know I'm inside. I just get these excruciating headaches. I have a lot of lights coming into my face. It's occupational hazard, guys. I used to trade staring at monochrome screens, for 10 years of my initial trading career, and it did something to my eyes. So when I am exposed to really bright lights, I pay the price sort of hours later with just hours of migraines. This has been the case for decades. So what dims or diminishes this effect with my eyes is these. I know it's inside, but trust me, um, I just have to do it sometimes. I try to not do it all the time, though. All right. So just so you know the story behind this is I'm not trying to be like a freaking rapper or anything like that. It's just it is there. It's a purpose. Yeah. Um, I'm having once a week a little wine here, so I hope you don't mind that either. Yeah. So Miami, Florida is in the house. I see it. Yeah, OV's here. Queens. Oh my goodness, Queens. I love Queens. Dude, I don't want to dox my kids, man, but I got kids that live in Queens and I love Queens, man. Uh Argentina, Boston's in the house. All right. Argentina's in the house. I love it. I love it. Wales, UK. Algeria's in the house. Medellin. Mi amigo. Parcero. Juan. All right. Medellin. It's my city. Mi hogar. How many steps so far? Let's see. Someone's asking me how many steps I have so far. I don't know if can you see that? Let me see if you can see my steps so far. Let's see if you can see this shit. I know it's upside down, but I don't even know if you can see that shit. Can you see that? 15,000. 15,000 algo. I don't know. 15,000 guys. So I'll get 20 before the end of the day. I will get 20,000. Yeah. Walking saves your life, guys. Walking saves your life. I'm telling you, walking saves your life. There are two things that I believe saves your life in this world, which is crazy, right? You know what's crazy about this? While we're waiting for other people to join in, you know what's crazy about this? The two things, in my opinion, that have the biggest effect on longevity, in my opinion, it's just my two sats, right? They cost absolutely nothing. And I think that's a theme that we should have, right? What costs nothing? Because I think the world has swung so far. The pendulum has swung so far to the to one side where you have everyone saying that in order to live well and breathe on this planet and exist, you have to pay. But I think it's on the other side. I think that's the signal to look to the other side and what is not required to pay. And I think that the most important things are on that side. Sometimes things can go so far to the other side that the truth is on the other side, right? So the two things, in my opinion, that lead to longevity don't cost anything, right? Walking doesn't cost anything. You don't need a gym membership. Dude, walking. Just walk. Even in your house, I walk in the house. Like when I'm on X answering your stupid questions, but Oliver, oh my God. Again, I'm walking doing that. I'm walking around my freaking house, responding to your stupid questions. If I'm watching a YouTube video or listening to a podcast, I'm freaking walking. Costs me nothing, right? So that costs nothing. The other thing that costs nothing, and the other thing that will save your life is not eating. It's crazy, guys. Listen, I have been super fat and I have been not so fat. I'm telling you, not so fat is better. And it costs me nothing. Just stop eating. Like it's as simple as that shit. You got books, podcasts, gurus. Stop fucking eating. Fuck. Well, how do I lose weight? Stop eating. The fuck? It's not fucking rocket science. Stop stuffing your face. Period. Ja. Nada más. Nothing more. Stop eating. Walk, stop eating. We have this tendency. I'm always reminding my traders of this, right? We as humans, we have this tendency to want to overcomplicate things. We lose the child's mind, right? The child is naturally born with this innocent, simple, but very powerful mind. And there is wisdom that is embedded in their simplicity. We hear some of the most profound things from children, right? Because they are unfettered by a very well-developed ego at that point when they're young. And so, not as much at least. And so we hear some of the darndest things from children. And it's because they're not infected by complexity and they're still immersed in the world of simplicity. And there's a power in simplicity. And we have this, I'm always reminding my traders, we have this human tendency when we become adults to think that if it's not complex, it's not true. Like, how can just buying Bitcoin and holding it be the answer? That's too fucking simple. Do you understand? That's too simple for the adult mind. So we need to say, well, Oliver, I think that, it's a lot more complex than that. We need all of these complicated formulas, and we need we need geometrical tools and things of that nature, and very complex formulas to determine what is right for us. And in reality, everything powerful in life is simple. You want to elongate your life, increase your health, stop fucking eating and walk. Everything else is superfluous. You know what I mean? But we have this tendency to want to do that. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Wow. All right. So yeah, let's shoot this shit here. I got some time here. Let's see what's going on. Jonathan has an interesting question here. Thoughts on Howard Lugnick for Treasury Secretary? Holy shit. Are you kidding me? This is crazy, guys. This is crazy, right? Like, wow. Okay. For those of you who do not know who Howard Lutnick is, let me give you a backstory. Back in the late 1990s, there was this person called Oliver Velez who was, maybe you've heard of him. He was running, operating, and was the founder of one of the most recognized trading organizations on Wall Street. That's right. His name was Oliver Velez. This is back in the late 1990s. He was one of the most sought after speakers in the entire industry. And there was a company that sought out his advice called Cantor Fitzgerald. This is back in the late 1990s. Cantor Fitzgerald reached out to this dude called Oliver Velez in the late 1990s because Cantor Fitzgerald, which was one of the most prominent, especially U.S. bond oriented firms in the country, in the United States, they reached out to this dude called Oliver Velez in the late 1990s to seek his advice on setting up an online bond protocol. Because what Oliver Velez did in the 1990s was to set up, right, one of the most powerful equity trading protocols of the time. Now, I won't go into details about that. We'll maybe have a special live on that, guys. But what you know is ARCA New York Stock Exchange, I was the first trader on ARCA. I was the first advisor on ARCA. I was one of the first people to contribute to the architecture of Archipelago, and Archipelago eventually took over the New York Stock Exchange. Anyway, the people on the street knew my pedigree, knew what I had done through ARCA and so forth and so on. And so Cantor Fitzgerald reached out to this dude called Oliver Velez to try to do the same thing for the bond market. That's me, Oliver Velez. I had a meeting with Cantor Fitzgerald a week after what eventually became a global event when the Twin Towers got attacked in 2001. So eventually, through multiple contacts, we wound up arranging for a meeting, but that meeting was to be scheduled after what became one of the world's iconic and most tragic events, especially on US soil. So, September of 2001, the Twin Towers get hit, but the Twin Towers get hit directly into Cantor Fitzgerald's offices. 98% of all employees die. Now, the question is thoughts on Howard Lutnick for Treasury Secretary. What many people don't understand is that Howard Lutnick is the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and even was so at the time. He called out on that day for whatever reason. He was scheduled to be in the office, called out, and that's what saved his life, because had Howard been in that office, he would have died along with 98% of all the employees of Cantor Fitzgerald. Now, what I love about this dude is that Howard vowed that he would support the families for life of all of the employees of Cantor Fitzgerald. And to this very day, Howard Lutnick is supporting all of the families, all of the wives, all of the husbands, all of the children, all of their education, everything. Do you understand me? This is crazy. This is amazing. And a lot of people at the time thought it was a gimmick. A lot of people think that we New Yorkers are very gimmicky, but we're very passionate. And he proved over time that it wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't to gain notoriety at a time where the world was watching. To this very day, this dude is supporting all the families that died. Now, this is one of the top firms on Wall Street. This is one of the world's #1 global market makers for U.S. government debt. This guy owns hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. Do you understand? Hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. And the idea that he could potentially become the Treasury Secretary. Holy shit. Dude, this is a guarantee that this cycle, Bitcoin goes to 1 million. You understand? There's going to be a point, people, where everyone that is responsible for making decisions for us are going to be aligned with us, which was the way it was supposed to be. Do you understand how the government was supposed to be? Let me explain it to you, just in case some of you don't know. Very quickly, I'll try to be brief with this, okay? Let me explain it to you. So, there was once upon a time where, all right, there was a bunch of farmers, right? Everybody's got their business going on and everybody's doing well. But there's this thing like, okay, look, we need someone to go to Washington in this case to represent us, this area, all of our farmers. Now, listen, one of us has got to do it. I don't want to do it. Maybe someone wants to do it, but whoever volunteers to go to Washington. Now, we know if you go to Washington, you can't run your farm. Don't worry. We will run your farm for you. Your family will be taken care of. Your farm will be taken care of. Just go represent us. Make sure everything's cool, everything's kosher, everything's copacetic. All right? We will make sure you get paid. Whatever, your family's okay. Just go represent us and make sure we're represented. That's government. That's the way it's supposed to be. That person is supposed to be us, representing us. Somehow over the decades, that freaking got lost. These people don't represent us. They rule us. And so Bitcoin has come on the scene to correct that bullshit. Do you understand? So now, if everyone has Bitcoin, all its incentives are aligned once again. And now the dude in DC, in Washington, DC, is now one of us again. He's a freaking Bitcoiner. Can you imagine this guy, Howard Lutnick, hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin, being the United States, the largest, the most powerful country in the world, being the Treasury Secretary? Do you think he wants to fuck up his bags? Hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin? No, everything is aligned now to us. He's one of us. He's the farm. We sent him there. Bitcoiners sent him there to be Treasury Secretary. And this is going to increase. More and more people who are in Washington, in the United States, they're going to represent us like it should be, not rule us like it is. Do you understand what I'm saying? Bitcoin brings everyone's incentives. It makes everyone's incentives the same. I freaking love it, man. I love it, man. I freaking love it, man. Do you love it too? That's crazy. It's amazing, right? So why? It's true. It's wow. People say, well, Oliver, what if the government bans it? What are you talking about? We went from the government's going to, Oliver, but the government's going to ban it, to The government's going to make it a strategic reserve. What the fuck are you talking about? Slowly, then boom, all at once. Crazy. Crazy. Do you know what the betting markets have as the odds that the US makes Bitcoin a strategic reserve? 67%. Holy shit. Holy moly. I'm telling you this. You are not ready. I'm not even freaking ready. And I'm way more bullish than you. We're all going to be like, fuck, why didn't I just do more? We're all going to be like that. Why didn't I do more? All of us, without fail. It's crazy. You understand? It's crazy. It is an amazing time to be alive. Do you know that history books are going to be freaking written about us? People are going to be reading about us. That's right. Us. We're going to be in the freaking history books. You can bet. There I go right there. You're going to be talking to your grandkids. That's me they're talking about. You see that? Did you read that? Did you read that? That's me. Granddad, where are you? That's me. They're talking about when we were able to buy Bitcoin for with government money. Granddad, you lived during the time that people sold their Bitcoin for government paper? Really? You're old, Granddad. That's going to be us. We're going to be in the freaking history books. We're going to be in museums. That right there. That's a human being. That's when human beings lived, when people were stupid enough to sell the rarest asset on planet Earth, the most valuable thing on planet Earth, the hardest asset humans have ever come in contact with, for government printed paper that another man could print, like monopoly money. Really? What kind? I mean, we're Homo sapiens. What kind of sapien was that? There he is right there. They're going to be pointing to you in a freaking museum. Do you understand? And you're going to be like this. There's going to be like the no coiner in the freaking museum. That's going to be the no coiner. The no coiner in the museum. Our kids are going to go to museums and be like, okay, that's a no coiner. That's an early adopter. I'm telling you, man, it's coming. It's coming. Oh, wait a minute. Gary, Indiana's in that. Guys, we've been waiting. Mike from Gary, Indiana, we've been waiting for you. So, guys, welcome. We can start now. Gary, Indiana is in the house. We can start now. We were just kind of warming up for that. But thank you, Mike, for showing up. Thank you. So, guys, welcome. Welcome to another live session with Oliver Velez. My name is Oliver Velez. No, I'm teasing you. Welcome, Gary. Glad you're in town here. I love it. Glad you're here. All right. Guys, I know some of you just joined, but listen, please forgive the glasses inside. There are just times I can't do the sacrifice for you bright lights because of occupational hazard for decades. Looking at monochrome screens give me like days of migraine headaches. So sometimes I'm able to do it for you. Today is not one of those days. Can't do it. So I gotta just kind of dim the lights, and I can't do it without the lights. It'll look terrible. All right. Funny, but I'm telling you, it's true. I'm telling you, it's so true. Guys, some people ask me, they say, Oliver, How is it that you have ultimately come to have so much, such an unshakable conviction? And in truth, when I finally got it, the conviction was absolute. And it was absolute because I realized I had lived through the Bitcoin revolution so many other times. Like I didn't need to see, I didn't need proof anymore. So let me give you an idea of what I lived through, right? So, guys, I have this unique, I'm almost 60 years old. I have this unique time in history where I've lived through several major global innovations that have changed the way all human beings operate and live on this planet. So the first revolution was the personal computer. You see, I was born in the mid 60s. So in the mid 1960s, there were computers, but there were no personal computers. So the personal computer came into existence during my lifetime. And I remember my first personal computer in the early 1980s. Many of you were too young for that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why is this? Many of you, the fuck is that? I don't know what that is. Give me a second here, guys. Many of you, there we go, were, anyway, many of you weren't even born then. But I lived through that. I saw what the personal computer did. I remember everyone poo-pooing it like, oh, it's just toy. It's for, it's for video games. It's this and that, da. And then it took over the world. What happened later was cell phones. Cell phones in the late 1980s. I remember while working on Wall Street, there were two head traders of the floor who had these big monstrosities on the trading floor. Now I'm on Wall Street. I'm on a floor with 300 traders on one floor. Every desk has 8 traders. It's 1987. All right. And the two head traders of my floor, and there were many floors of traders, but the two head traders of my floor they would walk around the floor with these strap things on their shoulder, like a briefcase. But in the briefcase was this monstrosity called a freaking cell phone. They carried these things around because they had to stay in constant contact with Germany. Do you understand? It's the craziest thing, man. All right. These cell phones were like, I don't know, $1,000 a minute. I don't know, it was something silly like that. And so it became a thing like, man, one day I want to have that thing strapped on my shoulder. Big fucking thing, big thing like this. A few years later, the head traders would have 2 assistants walking around the trading floor behind them. Each assistant had the strap. So they were like, they graduated from holding these heavy batteries that would charge these big cell phones to, no, we need assistants to do this. And so they would walk around the floor with 2 slaves following them, holding these heavy batteries with these cell phones while they held the cell phone. It's freaking crazy, right? And I saw this cell phone revolution take off and all the FUD. It's going to give you brain cancer. You're going to lose your hearing. And you guys are almost never without your smartphone. Think about that. That's crazy. So I lived through the personal computer revolution. I lived through the cell phone, smartphone revolution. Then, oh my God, the internet came into existence. All right. Hey, Rajat's here.
Hey, Oliver.
You guys know
How's it
Rajat.
going?
What's up, buddy? How are you doing, man?
Doing so well. I'm so happy to finally be able to talk to you on one of these calls,
Oh,
man.
awesome, man. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you being able to pop up without any advance notice. But man, it's just
Absolutely.
if you don't mind, just be quiet. I'm finishing my story. But no worries, man. So check this out. So then, guys, the internet revolution came, and this is the first time I thought that maybe it was time for me to leave Wall Street and maybe go out on my own, because we knew that the laws were about to be changed in 1994, that commerce on the internet was to be made legal. And so, and we also heard that new order handling rules were going to be on Wall Street, were going to be changed simultaneously with the internet being made legal to do business on the internet. A lot of you don't realize that it was illegal to do business on the internet before 1994. And so, but also new order handling rules were going to be changed at the same time. Now, let me tell you what that is. New order handling rules was, for the first time, you could press your own buy and sell button. I never lived in that world before 1994. I had to write a ticket and hand it to someone, and a licensed order taker had to place my trade, right? So what you guys are doing, pressing your own buttons today, that's because of new order handling rules that got passed in 1994. So internet becoming legal to do business over in 1994, and new order handling rules where I don't have to be on Wall Street to press a buy and sell button. I put those together and left and started my own firm in 1994. And I lived through the whole internet boom. I lived through the computer boom, the cell phone boom, the internet boom. And I realized, and I saw early how the internet was going to take over the world, how it was going to digitize everything. I could see through my own experiences how books were going to go to the internet, music was going to go to the internet, movies were going to go to the internet, information and knowledge was going to go to the internet. And what I realized at some point was the internet conquered everything in the world, but the internet conquered almost everything in the world using all of the developments before it. Do you understand? So the internet used the cell phone, iPhone. The internet used well, you can say it's the other way around, but not really, because the cell phone was before the internet really became legal. So the internet used the cell phone. The internet used the personal computer revolution. And it took over everything in the world except one thing: money. So the internet conquered everything, and I lived through that. I made a fortune from that movement. But money was untouched by the internet until 2009. And somehow the internet passed the baton to Bitcoin to say, now you go the full distance and you take over the only thing that I couldn't take over. I took over music. I took over books. I took over, I took over movies. I took over telecommunications. I took over love. I took over dating. I took over everything in life, but I couldn't take over money. Now it's your turn. And it fucking passed the baton to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin said, I got you, the final leg. I'm the final leg in the freaking race. I'm taking it all the way, and I'm taking it for the biggest thing on planet Earth. Thank you, internet, for taking movies. Thank you for handling music. Thank you for handling information, knowledge, education, dating, relationships. Thank you for handling everything else. Now I'm here to handle the biggest thing on planet Earth, which is human value. And so the way I look at Bitcoin is that it's the internet of money. It's not money for the internet. It's the internet of money. But more important than that, it is the recorder of all human value. I mean, if you think about the implications of that, like the only thing, because at the end of the day, money is just a ledger that records transactions between human beings. That's what money is. This is a freaking ledger, right? All right. That's all it is. That's all money is a ledger. It's just a record keeping. It's a record keeping book. It's a freaking journal. But that journal, that record keeping is history. Now, history has been manipulated, controlled, altered, falsified throughout all of human existence. History has largely been false. It has been written by the victor, by the powers that be, by the elite to indoctrinate the masses. History has never really been true until now. So now Bitcoin is here to record transactions between human beings that are immutable, irrefutable, that are true. And for the first time, we're going to have history that's real. This goes way beyond a monetary value. This goes way beyond number go up. Truth. Do you understand what I'm saying, Rajat? Talk to me, man.
Absolutely, man. What you were saying just now, what came to my mind? You made a point in one of your old podcasts. I actually listened to all your content. It's all awesome. There was one where you said how before you used to be able to take like one photo album with you. Now you can have thousands of pictures on your phone, right? And it just makes everything that's digital just gets bigger and bigger, and it makes so much sense, right? Like digital gold versus digital, like physical gold, right? I mean, huge difference.
I want to make you big. I'm going to see if can I make you big? I don't know how to make you big. You're talking, and I don't know how to do it. All right, but okay.
No worries.
No, I appreciate that. It's so very true.
Yeah.
I tell the story all the time, Rajat, where my mother people used to freaking bore the neighbors every single year. I used to get so embarrassed. It was almost like my mother forgot. Like she would get the neighbors over for coffee in the annual event with the neighbors. And she's like, did you see Oliver's first baseball game? And she would whip out the albums, the same one she whipped out the year before that, the year before that. And I'm sitting there like dying in the corner saying, Mom, you showed this for 12 years in a row. They already saw these pictures, and they're being polite, and they're watching her flip through the albums the 12th time. And I'm now 13 years old, and she's showing the albums when I was 3 years old for 12 years in a row, 10 years in a row. I'm embarrassed. The crazy thing is that I have over 50,000 photos in this phone. I've got over 40,000 in this one. I can show you phone after phone. This one, look, I've got more photos in these 4 phones than all the libraries of albums of everybody I know. I have more books on these phones and my iPads than all the libraries my mother ever worked at, and all the libraries I ever went to in all of my schools, all of my universities. The internet has digitized everything in our life except one thing. It could not digitize money. It lacked something. It digitized information. It digitized knowledge. It digitized photos, movies, experience, it digitized human relationship. I have deeper relationships with people online that I have never met than I have with some of my family members. It digitized everything, but the thing that it could not do was money. And Bitcoin in 2009 came to do the final step. And so the way I look at Bitcoin is it is part of this growing spirit that has run through all of humanity. You know, the printing press was part of this movement. You understand? You know, it's a long history of movement of just making freedom and access more available to everybody.
And it just compounds over time, right? Like it just gets
That's right.
better and better. And you just build on one technology, then you build on the next one, then you build on the next. Like imagine where we would be if, like you said, if we didn't have the printing press, right? There would be no way to distribute knowledge.
Absolutely right.
Right.
I agree, man. I agree, man.
Like that on its own is huge.
Fly's saying, man, Fly's got a
Hey,
comment.
how's it going, Fly Master? So I was actually looking at, I was watching a video where they were showing how before the printing press, there would be people who write books and they would take like a year to write one book. And then they would distribute that to whoever, and there would be one copy. They'd be able to read one copy of it. And it was just crazy. Like now it's just insane. And it just keeps growing and growing. And like, I feel like like even right now we're talking to each other. How would we have communicated without the internet?
Absolutely.
Right.
It would be virtually impossible for me to ever speak to you or know you. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, you know, my main point for bringing all of this up was to really drive home this point or this answer to a very frequent question that I receive. Oliver, how was your conviction so absolute? And it stems from me having lived through multiple revolutions. I've seen this movie before. I've seen the personal computer take over the world. I've seen cell phones, which ultimately became smartphones, take over the world. I've lived through the internet taking over the world. And now I'm living through Bitcoin taking over the world. So it's not like it's my first rodeo. You know, I lived through all of this. And so if I look at Bitcoin in the same way that I've looked at all of the things that I've experienced in my life, change every aspect, every corner of every part of our lives, and realize Bitcoin is just going to continue that, then it's just easy to have absolute certainty because I've seen it before. It's like watching the same movie for the fifth time and being able to repeat the lines of all the actors. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, crazy. It's not the same thing, but it rhymes, right? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? And that's exactly what I think. That's exactly the point that you're making.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you know, that saying that, you know, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. I think that's very valid, but to a certain extent, I think it does an injustice because there's an element that is always the same. Adoption by human beings is always the same. You can look at everything that human beings have adopted in the history of the human race and map it out, and it's the same freaking pattern. It's the same thing. And here's the thing, Rajat, that I'm trying to constantly pound the table on. To anyone who would listen to me, right, is I try to make them realize that humans never stopped adopting something. So After a certain point of adoption, it never stops being adopted because the human race never stops growing. So, for instance, people are still adopting fire. We're thousands of years into that. Some people might argue we're millions of years into that. We're still adopting electricity. You know, that's what, 600 years in terms of harnessing the everyday uses of electricity. We're 600 years into that, and we're still, as a human race, adopting electricity. We're still adopting the combustible engine in cars. We're still adopting commercial air flight. We're still adopting phones and, you know, all forms of communication. We're still adopting the personal computer. We're still adopting this cellular technology. We're still adopting everything, and we will be adopting it forever because there's a net new number of human beings born every day. That's estimated at 250,000 new human beings net of all deaths. That's 250,000, 250,000 new internet users, new users of the math protocol, new car riders, new airplane takers, new computer users, new internet users, and new freaking Bitcoiners. Adoption never stops. Now, here's the crazy thing. If adoption, and let's replace the word adoption with demand, if adoption/demand never stops, but the supply is inelastic, what's that the recipe for eternity, forever?
Number goes up.
Forever.
Yeah.
How can it not?
Yeah.
Demand 250,000 new human beings net of deaths every day. Inelastic supply? Like, we've never had something in the human experience that way. Everything has been able to expand the supply to meet a growing demand, except Bitcoin. And so I think Bitcoin is going to teach the human race what true scarcity is, what an inelastic supply truly is. And the people who are able to grasp this the earliest will stand to be the most rewarded, I think, generationally. And some people might think that's unfair, but it's just life. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And I think the people that are ignoring it right now, like they're going to regret it. Right. I feel like there's so much content out there telling you like, this is where things are going. This is where we're not doing it because we want you to be our exit liquidity. We're doing it because we don't want to be rich alone.
That's right, man. That's right. That's right, man. I always say it, man. It's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
It truly is lonely at the top. It truly is, man. Like I realized this so many years ago, man, having semi-retired relatively young and realizing, but none of the people I usually spend time with can be with me now. It's just lonely. But also, I don't know. I'm not wired that way. I'm not wired where I can't share something. I realized a long time ago, Rajat, that knowledge is one of the few things in life that you can give and you don't lose. So if I have $100 and I give you $50 of it, I actually lose $50 in a way. I might get it back down the line, but at that moment, I'm $50 light because I gave it to you.
Yeah.
If I share a piece of knowledge with you, I haven't lost my knowledge. If I share half of my knowledge with you, I haven't lost half of my knowledge because I gave it to you. And so why not?
Yeah.
It's literally no cost whatsoever to share.
Yeah. And to absorb that knowledge too. No cost. No cost whatsoever. You just have to put in your time and it's so worth it, especially when you have people just giving you the best information possible. Like why not absorb it and why not apply it? I feel like it's such an easy way to get out of the rat race, learning from people who have done it, learning from people who've actually gone down that path. It's such an easy way to get out of the rat race. And if more people get out of the rat race, it just means more people are happy in the future.
Absolutely true.
Right?
Absolutely true. Also, what kind of human being are you if you realize you're in a burning building, there's someone asleep. Now you see the exit. Here's our way to exit the burning building. And this dude's asleep. You're not going to try to wake him up first.
Yeah.
You just try to, I don't care about him. I'm going to at least try to wake him up, while on my way to the exit too. I'm going to try to wake the dude up. But what kind of human being would I be like, no, let him sleep, man. I'm going for the exit. I'm just not wired that way. I got to try to let you know as I'm running for the exit. I got to try to let you know. I got to shout along the way. You can listen. You cannot listen. I'm on my way to the exit. I'm telling you that's the exit. You can ignore me. You can stay asleep if you want, whatever. But I'm going to at least live in peace on the other side of that exit, knowing that I shouted. I tried to yell at you. I tried to shake you violently, and, I always make this joke about it, Rajat, where it's, a lot of people say, well, Oliver, why are you so toxic? Why are you, so adamant? Why do you deal with us so rough? And I'm like, look, dude, your house is on fire. So look, we don't have time. You don't have time for me to sing lullabies to you and be nice and like, okay, so listen, I'm gonna sing very lightly to you and hope you wake up from your stupor very lightly. No, I'm gonna be like, wake the fuck up. I'm gonna shake you as violently as I can. You're gonna say, well, wait a minute, Oliver, I need my sneakers. I'm gonna say, forget your sneakers. There's the exit sign. Let's go. And that's the attitude I take now. We don't have time. Our time is limited. And a lot of people don't get when I say we don't have time. Well, Oliver, you'll always be able to buy Bitcoin. That I don't believe is true. But even if that were true, your time is limited at this price. Like, what is your $100 DCA going to do at 800,000?
Yeah.
I mean, it does a little bit more now. You understand? So time is limited. This asset's disappearing. The elites coming into it will not let it go. And ultimately, I believe you will not be able to buy it for paper money. I believe that is happening in our lifetime, where we will not be able to buy Bitcoin. We'll be able to trade for it. We'll be able to trade value and services for it, but no one's going to accept in the future government money for Bitcoin. I believe that's in our lifetime. What do you think about that? You think that's going too far?
I actually completely agree with you. I think we're those crazy people who actually think that the fiat currency world won't. I don't think fiat, the way that it is today, can survive with Bitcoin. Right? Because at a point, why would anybody want fiat currency? Why would anybody want pieces of paper in exchange for their resources and their time and all the things that they can't recreate, that they can't produce more of, right? And I think back to your point where you were saying $100 DCA, people think, oh, $100 isn't going to do anything. It's nothing. It's not relevant. But that $100 is huge. Like it's gonna add up so quick. It's just people aren't seeing it. Like they don't see the value of accumulating over time. And I think that's the problem. And I think that's what you're doing so well with, right? You're telling people, hey, this is what you need to do. Buy as much as you can, even if you can buy $5 worth. Just do it. Actually, a couple of days ago, I bought $2 worth of Bitcoin because that's all the extra cash that I had. Right.
Yes.
And whatever, that's what I bought. I bought something like 2,500 Satoshis. Why not?
Of course. Like UJ5K is saying, maybe if the US hyperinflates for Bitcoin, not necessarily. I just think that we're in an era, some might refer to this as the fourth turning, but we're in an era where I think that larger percentages of people are going to wake up to the fact that what I am forced to work for is a melting ice cube. The longer I hold it, the longer it loses value. So I have to actually switch it to something else that doesn't melt. That's Bitcoin. Now, There are certain services right now that I will only accept Bitcoin for, that I offer. I'm not taking dollars for it. I'm not taking Argentinian pesos. I'm not taking Japanese yen. I'm taking Bitcoin. And I know that the Bitcoin that I'm taking 4 years from now is guaranteed mathematically to be higher than the price that I'm taking it for. So to me, that's an extra win. I'm not the only one realizing that if I take Bitcoin, even at a discount for a service that I offer today, that 4 years from now, it is quite nicely more valuable than the value that I'm taking it for today. As more and more people realize that, they're going to refuse to take dollars instead of Bitcoin. So someone's going to ask you, to take you to the airport as a favor, and I'm going to give you like $70 to take me to the airport. My Uber is not going to make it here on time. Can you do it for me? I'll pay you $70. And you'll be like, yeah, if you give me Bitcoin, I'll do it. I'm not doing it for dollars, but if you can give me Bitcoin, here's my wallet, I'll do it. And you know that Bitcoin you're going to accept for that Uber ride, that ride to for your neighbor to the airport for $70, that's going to be exponentially more 4 years from now. Like, the more people realize this, they're going to stop accepting the weak instead of the strong. The dollar doesn't even have to hyperinflate for that to happen. I'm doing it. I'm not the only person on planet Earth doing that. You understand? So it just gradually, then suddenly. But this
Hey, Oliver, have you thought
history.
about? Oh, sorry, but I actually just thought of something. Have you thought about how people can actually set their own wage essentially with Bitcoin? So let's say you offer a service, you get a certain amount of Bitcoin, and then when you sell that Bitcoin is when essentially what your wage was, right? So let's say you get that Bitcoin, you hold it for 4 years. Let's say you offer a service and you get that Bitcoin. Let's say you get 1,000 satoshis for it, and it's worth $1 today. Let's say 10 years from now, it's worth $50 or $100, right? It's worth $1 today. It's worth $100 later on. When you liquidate it, that's essentially when you got your wage, right? And the longer you hold it, it's like even better for you, because if you hold it for longer, it's like you don't have to sell it early, and your wage.
Well, I think that I'm sorry for interrupting. I think that what you're saying connects to something that became surreal to me in this cycle. So I have been working my whole career, and very successfully so, in the financial space, right? And some might consider, me having reached like the top 1%, back in the late 2000s, before 2010, whatever the case is. But today, the Bitcoin that I bought in recent years moves sometimes in a month more than my whole career's earnings.
Wow.
What? 1 month, I dedicated my whole career to this and became the top 1% in the world. And my Bitcoin holdings in a month has experienced gains, rises that wipe out my whole career. I believe more Bitcoiners are going to experience this, where the Bitcoin that they've been accumulating for a cycle or two starts to produce more in a week than their whole year, and then ultimately more in a day than their whole year of working for another man.
Wow.
It's happening to me now. That's crazy. It's wild. And I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, and I'm certainly not going to be the last. You understand? Yeah. And as this becomes more and more prevalent, man, it's going to spread like wildfire, It's crazy.
And like, you put in all that energy, that time to get to the 1%, and you're getting rewarded for it basically forever because you bought Bitcoin.
Yes. That's right.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now you speak a lot about you speak a lot. You were a real estate guy, weren't you, at one
Yeah,
point?
I was a realtor before.
I see you on your post hammering the real estate guys.
I love it. I love it. I enjoy it so much.
So, okay, explain to me why you love hammering those dudes. Like, I like making fun of people. Like, it was
Yeah.
just part of my culture. Guys, I grew up in Brooklyn. We just ragged on people. That was cool. You know, we joked on people. We made fun of their mothers, this and that. That's just the culture I grew up in. And that's just a cool thing to do. And a lot of people are very sensitive to that and can't take that. But I notice you love to rank on the real estate people. So tell me why you love that.
It's because they don't get it. They can't see it, right? They just can't see it. They think that cash flow is king, but it's not, especially if you're getting a shitty currency,
Yes.
right? Like if you're getting
Yeah.
cash flow in Bitcoin, it's different. But then the thing is that they're rejecting an asset that's giving them 50% annual returns to get 5% cash flow. Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think that, Rajan,
Yeah.
I rag on the real estate people as well.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a real estate person per se. I mean, I had 22 different properties, but I didn't really consider myself a real estate person because it's not like I rented them out and I was in it for the business. I just bought properties that I loved.
Yeah.
Wherever I traveled, I'd buy it and whatever. But I will say this. I think that what gets what is difficult for most real estate people to get over is the fact that they can leverage so much with a small amount. And so when we say that, if you put the numbers together, real estate on average, rises 6 to 9% a year. And then when you deduct all of the expenses and the wear and tear and the lawyer fees, insurance and taxes or whatever, you're really losing at the end of the day. But that's not really incorporating the fact that you're leveraging that asset with 10% down or 20% down. And so I think it's harder for them to get over that fact that they're calculating the numbers based on their leveraged amount. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, even then, Bitcoin's outperforming, right?
No, of course. Of
If you
course.
get 5% returns on real estate and you borrow, I actually ran the numbers on this. I have a spreadsheet and everything. If you borrow 80%, let's say you buy a $625,000 house. You put down 125,000, you borrow 80%, borrow $500,000. Let's say your property returns 5% a year. With your 80% leverage, you're getting at most 25% return.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Right? And think about how much headache you're taking. You have tenants. PJR said, "I hate managing tenants." That on its own is just a nightmare to me. Like I don't want to deal with somebody, right? If they're not paying rent, I don't want to have to be the one kicking them out.
Yeah, as a world traveler, it was very easy for me to see the flaws in, you know, building my entire wealth in something that I can't move, that's stationary.
Yeah.
I mean, that was always a problem I had with stacking a big part of my accumulated wealth in gold, which I did. I learned that from my dad. And so I was a gold bug the majority of my life. But I always had this issue with, but how do I move it? And no one could really give me an answer other than you don't need to move it.
Yeah.
And right. But that never really sat well with me. And so, one of the things that grabbed me was the transportability of Bitcoin and how Bitcoin is literally your word. Like you and your word, you are your word. You are your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin and you are the same. It never leaves you. It's never really separate from you. A lot of people confuse Bitcoin with their hardware wallet, but that's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin, that helps you interact with the protocol, but Bitcoin is truly a part of who you are. It's almost like it's your spirit. It's almost like it's your soul. It's almost like it's your honor. It's almost like it is your word. Bitcoin is your word. It's 12 to 24 words. For the first time, our value, our word is our bond, our word is our Bitcoin, our word is our value. And it's with us at all times. And there's no question of how do I move it? There's no question of how does someone get at it or take it or steal it? How does someone steal the word hope from you? It's not possible. So all of these things helped me really help something really fundamentally click at some point, all at the same time. I had this almost moment, this Damascus moment, falling off the horse and getting it all at once. Everything came together at once after kind of looking and massaging the individual pieces, and it just came together all at once, for me. And wow, I mean, like everyone else, I just wish it happened earlier. you know I
Yeah.
just wish it happened earlier, man.
But I mean, so you wish it happened earlier, but can you imagine how the people feel who have no allocation? Like they're just seeing this thing
Yeah,
it's going into the moon. Like it's actually going to the moon and they have none. And they're just waiting for their accounts to be made. They're waiting for their accounts
yeah,
to be approved. And they're just waiting. They're just waiting. They can't do anything about it.
yeah. And I think that's going to be with us for quite some time.
Yeah.
What I try to tell people is that Bitcoin is actually safer today than it was in the past. I
Yeah.
mean, in truth, we have to really truly honor people who saw a vision in 2012, 2013 and held on because of that vision, because it was Bitcoin was of 2013 is not what Bitcoin is today. The security wasn't there, the certainty wasn't there, the all the laws hadn't kicked in, Metcalfe's law and so forth and so on. It was such a much more highly risky thing than it is today. Today, it's the closest thing to certainty. You know, we have 16 years, and I'm constantly reminding my audience that in my industry, the gold standard is 10 years. So I was always taught that you want to find a mutual fund that has a 10-year record. Not many will, but if you can find one and they are consistent through 10 years, that can't be luck. You can't luck into a 10-year good record. You can luck into a 2-year good record, a 3-year, maybe even a 5-year, but 10-year is mathematically impossible. So if you can get a 10-year item, if you can get a 10-year hedge fund, a 10-year billionaire investor that's going to run your money, a 10-year money manager, a 10-year mutual fund, a 10-year record of your index, you're good. Now we've got 16 years of Bitcoin and people are still freaking doubting it. We're way over we're way over the 10-year mark. We're way over the gold standard on Wall Street and people are still doubting it. You can't luck into a 10-year record, and you certainly can't luck into a 16-year record.
Those people are going to doubt it basically forever.
No, for sure. I
Right?
agree with
Like,
that.
they're going to hate them. Like it's like Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff has been saying it's going to zero since it was $1.
Yeah.
Right? He's been saying it's a bubble since it's $1. I have no reason to say that he's going to change his mind anytime soon.
I just, I just think as I'm very fond of saying, I just think that Bitcoin is more of an ego test than it is an IQ test. I think that the deniers today are just butthurt. I mean, I think it's an ego thing, Rajat. I think it is. I think it's more like, like for instance, I speak to friends. We sit around, we smoke a cigar together, and we talk about this. And I see the number of friends that I have that just can't pull the trigger. You know why? Because I got in earlier.
Mm.
They can't just, they can't commit now just because I got in earlier. Like they knew me for many years before Bitcoin. And because I got it earlier, it's hard to commit now. You understand?
Yeah.
And that's ego. So
Yeah.
they would rather find something that I'm not in, that they can say, oh, yeah, but you're not in this. And look at what I did. It's all ego. So, and these are bright people, wealthy people. But just because the people amongst us are in before they're in, they would rather find something that we're not in.
Yeah.
That's ego.
It's so true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy.
It's just them trying to protect their feelings. They don't want to feel like, oh, I missed out. I was late. I was this. They just don't want to, right? Their goal is to make themselves feel good. They don't want to. They don't want you to. I guess they don't want you to have the upper hand. They want to have as much as you have,
Yeah,
but they're late. I mean, they're not even late. Actually, that's the wrong way to say it. They're not late. They're actually they're still very early, and they just don't see it.
absolutely right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. $E asking, buying a semi-passive business versus holding Bitcoin. What are your thoughts, Rajan, on that?
Oh, if you had okay, so let's look at the numbers. So if you have a semi-passive business, how much are you going to make? Maybe 10% a year, right? And there's so much work that has to be done. You have to hire employees. You have to trust them to to do what they're supposed to. You have to deal with clients. You have to do all that. I'm not saying having a business is a bad thing. What I'm saying is that
Taxes, insurance,
yeah,
third-party risk, reliance on others. Bitcoin does away with all of that.
exactly.
And it has a CAGR that's exponentially higher than anything you can get from a passive business.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to get people to see this a lot of times. But in most cases, if you can just make sure that you have more Bitcoin this quarter than last quarter, you're going to beat almost everyone in life.
Mm.
This is what people don't realize, that the best, you know how they have these reports, Rajat, the all-time best investor, it's a Bitcoiner. Over the last 16 years, it's a Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
The Bitcoiners are the most successful investors on planet Earth, the OG Bitcoiners. The best investors on planet Earth over the last year, on average, they're Bitcoiners. The best investors over the past 2 years, they're Bitcoiners. The best investors on planet Earth over the past 5 years, they're Bitcoiners. The best investors on planet Earth over the past 10 years, they're Bitcoiners. The best investors on planet Earth after the past 10 years, they're Bitcoiners. The past 15 years, they're Bitcoiners. No one on planet Earth has ever outperformed a Bitcoin, not in mass. Maybe one or two exceptions, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about a needle in a haystack. We're talking about the fact that nothing beats Bitcoin, nothing, and nothing ever will over time in pockets. But that's like saying, the guy who's been coming to the casino for the last 30 years finally hit a jackpot. Come on, you know? So it's still very difficult to people to be able to see that, because most people haven't done the work to basically look into the history and look at the numbers and go down the rabbit hole. So the conviction is not there. They've had a lifetime of being fed the traditional system. So they know that, but they don't know the system that now breaks the traditional system. It's going to take some time. It's going to take
Oliver,
some time.
what do you think about returns? Do you think we're going to see diminishing returns over the next, let's say, 50 years?
Will you say no?
Like over the next 50 years, do you think we're going to see diminishing returns? The way that I see it, I think that until the US dollar is dead, we're not going to see diminishing returns.
I'm not a big proponent of diminishing returns theory. Now, I know this kind of breaks a rule of mine where you only bank on what is. What we have had is diminishing returns. But when I look throughout history, this is normal. You get this meteoric explosion in adoption, and then a brief period of pause, not pause in adoption, but pause in the rate of adoption. And then it takes off again, and it's more violent than the initial. And then it pauses and then takes off again, and it's more violent than the previous one. And if you were to look at every single thing that humans have adopted, it's followed that explosive run, pause, more explosive run, pause. Diminishing returns statistically start happening after 65, 70%, not after less than 1%. Less than 1% of the world has adopted Bitcoin. How can you have diminishing returns? How can it be diminishing returns after less than 1%? Oh, it's downhill from here, Oliver. We've got less than 1% adoption. How does that even mathematically make sense when everything experiences its most explosive adoption rate in the freaking middle? And we're talking about less than, oh, it's downhill from here after less than 1%. Now, some people, Rajat, say, Oliver, I'm not sure it's less than 1%. I hear all much bigger numbers. And then I say, well, okay, tell me, show me someone in your life who has it. And then they start thinking, like, what other family members do you have it? Silence. What are the relatives? Silence. Neighbors? Silence. Church members? Silence. Your kids' softball team fathers? Silence. Friends? Silence. Dude, less than 1% of the world even knows enough about it to have it. And yet, with that little pinch of adoption, that little pinch, it became the best performing asset on planet Earth with less than 1%. Where are we going to be at 5%?
Yeah.
20%, 60%.
Yeah.
If less than 1% created all of this, holy shit, 3%, 5%? My God, the best is in front of us.
Yeah.
I'm constantly pounding the table on this with my guys. You, not only are you not late, the best years are in front of you. You better get this now.
And keep in mind,
less than 1% is not the best behind you. The best is in front of you.
Yeah. And keep in mind, even the 1% out of the people who have adopted it, some of them just bought out of luck, right? They don't actually understand it. Like there's so many people who tell me, oh, it's going to zero. I have some, but I don't trust it. I don't believe in it. It's because you don't understand it, right? I think, so what do you think out of that 1%, what do you think is the total number of people who actually understand it? Like the percentage out of that?
That's even in the smaller number.
Yeah.
You know, if we go to the level of understanding, and I think that we're still trying to understand it as well, and I think that that will go on for a while. We're still learning new ways to utilize fire for the human race. Yeah. We're finding and discovering new ways. I think that discovery process is going to be forever. But I do relate it to, I try to get people to relate it to the internet because I lived through that era. And I just remember when I decided to leave Wall Street to go start my own company and put up a website, all of the people from my Wall Street days were advising me against this. Oliver, the web is not professional. It's not for Wall Street oriented firms. You're going to damage your image. It's for porn. It's for criminals. The same thing we hear even now with Bitcoin. And I did it anyway, but I tell people, like, you know, people did not understand the importance of the internet for many years until it became obvious. The same things are going to happen for Bitcoin, but every single time it's shorter. So The time it took for the world to really get it for the internet is going to be less time for Bitcoin. It was less time for the internet than the personal computer. It was less time for the personal computer than it was for the television, than the television for the radio, and so forth and so on. So every time the window gets smaller. Now, Zinzili is saying, but what's the cause of an adoption pause? Let me just try to take this very quickly, Rashad.
Of course.
And I think that what I always like to do is relate things to everyday life, because I believe in the concept of as above, so below, as below, so above. So since truth is universal, all you have to do is run truth up or down. And if it's true down, it's true up. If it's true up, it must be true down. So you know how, like, if you were to take a runner, a championship runner, and you run him doing a championship race, but you want that runner to have multiple races. You can't have that championship runner run all multiple Olympic races all at once without a rest, without a pause, without recuperation, without regeneration. Everything is adopted this way. It's never a straight line up. It's a beeline up. It's a stair step up. And everything that ascends needs periods of rest to remain healthy. If they don't get those periods of rest, those periods of pauses along the way, the price you pay is a total collapse. So the rests serve as a release valve to prevent it from a total collapse. These resting periods are cleansing, rejuvenation periods. So this is why you've heard of things like an S-curve adoption. So if you were to draw an S, the middle part of an S is the pause, right? So the bottom part of the S is the swoop up, then you get the pause, and then another swoop up, right? That pause is necessary in everything in life. And whatever human beings touch, adopt, take in, must almost produce the same pattern. Rise, pause, rise, pause, rise, pause. And that will be for everything. And so Bitcoin is no exception.
Yeah, I think that even applies to the weather, right? If it just keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, you're screwed.
Yes.
It's a cycle. Everything is in cycles.
Think what is let me see what this guy saying. Oliver, I think that when this thing rises, the vast majority are going to sell Bitcoin. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I just think that over time you start to get a new buyer, an increasing number of Oliver Velez's, of Rajat's, of you maybe, of Larry Fink's, of BlackRock's, of Michael Saylor's. You think that we are going to stay the number that we are? Or do you think that every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, every decade, more and more Oliver Velez's that will never sell come into existence? And so what you have is a transfer of ownership over time to a larger and larger percentage of people that will not sell. You understand? And the people who sold Manhattan real estate, the sales were far more frequent in the beginning of Manhattan than they are today. So the prices were more volatile of the price of Manhattan property in the 1700s. It was more volatile and there were more transactions and more sales. Today is less volatile and fewer transactions for sale. It's the same thing that happens for everything. The transfer of ownership, eventually the asset of value winds up in the hands ultimately over time of people like me that won't sell. So let them sell. Yeah. Every pullback increases the number of Bitcoin in cold storage that will never move. Every pullback improves Bitcoin. Every pullback makes it more pure. Every pullback, every dip makes it more scarce. I buy every dip. I make Bitcoin scarcer every single time it drops. I'm not the only one. Michael Saylor makes Bitcoin more scarce. Larry Fink makes Bitcoin more scarce. And don't think that Larry Fink's entities are selling Bitcoin. I don't believe that. I believe that that Bitcoin will forever stay in their ecosystem, moving from this entity to that entity. They're not letting it go to you cowboy boot, jean wearing, straw chewing gum chomping, cowboy hat wearing regular people on the street. They're not letting the most valuable thing, the scarcest thing on earth, go back to you. They're not. So when they get it, it's going to stay in their ecosystem. They're going to sell their paper back and forth, but they're not going to sell Bitcoin back and forth. That's going to stay in their ecosystem. And if you sell and making them have to supposedly sell Bitcoin, another entity of theirs is going to take the Bitcoin because they got another $50 billion waiting to take the Bitcoin you just sold. So, like, dude, it's a disappearing asset. And the faster you can understand this, I'm making it disappear. Rajat's making it disappear. The Larry Finks of the world is making it disappear. The Michael Saylors of the world are making it disappear every single day. You just want to see the results of that like this. That's not how life works, but it's disappearing. It is disappearing every single day of your life. I make it disappear every single day of your life.
And I think you made a post. You made a post, right? BlackRock is actually adding it to their own funds.
Oh, yes. So they're 13, right? They're what is it? F13, 13F filing came out, and they had to reveal the fact that they bought their own IBIT funds. Now, if you think about this, I want you to, I don't think a lot of people understand how thoroughly BlackRock is really taking this industry. So they have the biggest, most dominant accumulating entity of Bitcoin in the world, IBIT. So they're accumulating it more aggressively than anyone. All right, Michael Saylor's giving them a run, but they're definitely the kings right now. So the biggest money manager of wealth in the world is the biggest accumulator of Bitcoin in the world. Now, people say, well, Oliver, they're doing it on behalf of other people. No, they're not. They're doing it on behalf of themselves, and they're giving you paper that their Bitcoin is backing, but you have the paper, which is a promise for not Bitcoin, is a promise for dollars. So they're using your dollars to accumulate the rarest asset on earth, which is theirs. They don't owe you Bitcoin. They owe you dollars, the melting ice cube. They get to keep the Bitcoin. So it's masterful. In addition to that, they're the largest owner of publicly traded Bitcoin miners. So they're in the well, they're at the spigot. So not only are they the biggest accumulators from you bozos who sell it, they're at the pump taking the majority because they're one of the largest owners of publicly traded miners in the US, and US controls or is responsible for the largest amount of the Bitcoin hash rate. So they're at the pump. So they're dominant at the pump of Bitcoin. They're the biggest taker of the Bitcoin that you bozos are selling. All right. They also are one of the largest owners of the biggest custodian of Bitcoin, which is Coinbase, one of the largest owners. Do you understand? They're at every point try to get as much as possible. They're at the biggest storage facility. They own the majority. They're the biggest owner of that. They're the biggest owner of the entities that mine it, and they're the biggest. They're the owner of the entity that takes it away from all of you who want to sell it. Now, what if you put all of that together? What is the biggest manager of wealth on earth telling you with their actions?
Buy Bitcoin.
Yes. But Oliver, what about Saturn? The orbit of Saturn is not quite right, and that. Really? Dude, come on. It's in your face. It's in your face. You watch what they do. You don't listen to what they say. And the biggest people in the world. Look, I've got one mentor in life. That is Paul Tudor Jones. That's the only guy in my whole life I've looked up to. Paul Tudor Jones. I've been following and chasing this guy since the mid 1980s. This guy is a freaking Bitcoiner. All right. The next dude, Stanley Druckenmiller. These are at the top of the human race as far as money is concerned. And they're Bitcoiners. Larry Fink, BlackRock. Listen, to me, if you don't get it now, I almost feel like Satoshi. I don't have time to explain it to you anymore. I'm just glad I'm going to be gone at 100K. I don't have time now. If you're that dense, then get it when you're going to get it. I don't have any time anymore. It's just too in your face right now. For you to be that low IQ, it's too in your face. Now, for the first time in Bitcoin's history, you've got regulatory clarity, you've got institutional sponsorship. For the first time, you have a permanent institutional bid in Bitcoin. We've never had this, not last quarter, not any cycle, not last cycle, not any cycle before. We got FASB rule changes that have made it no longer punitive for publicly traded companies to hold it on the balance sheet. For the first time this cycle, we have small nation states putting it on their balance sheets. For the first time, we have presidential candidates running on a Bitcoin platform for the most powerful country on planet Earth, the United States. For the first time, we have a president-elect promising that Bitcoin is going to be national, is going to be used as a strategic reserve. For the first time, we have senators vying to not only buy more Bitcoin for the strategic reserve, but to sell the storehouse of US's gold to put it in Bitcoin. I'm telling you, if you don't see this now, I'm sorry, you are super dumb. Dumb. How do you see all of this and say, but Oliver, I still don't know. I don't understand. How? I mean, nothing else has this. Is there another asset that the human race knows that America wants to, for the first time, include as a strategic reserve? No. Is there another ETF that has ever been more successful? No. Is there another technology or monetary network that is being adopted faster? Was there ever another one? No. Is there another network that human beings have ever been exposed to that is safer and more secure than Bitcoin? No. Is there anything that human beings have ever held dear that has outperformed Bitcoin? No. You start to get to a place, Rajat, where it's like, okay, I have nothing else to say, man.
I think it's just like you said, it's ego.
But Oliver, no, dude, I'm out, man.
It's this ego though, right? They don't think that they can. The reason why we say to people study Bitcoin is because they haven't studied it. They think they have, but I don't think they know what study means, right?
Yeah.
And it's they read
Well,
headlines.
yeah, they're looking at it from the system, and I get it.
Yes.
It's difficult to step out of the system and look at it. So they're looking at it from the system. Isn't it just another thing to make dollars for?
Yeah.
And if you haven't broken that, then you will never really get it. You'll never get it if it's just a step, something you step on to get the superior thing. Oh, this helps me get the superior thing, more dollars. So if you're still there, you will never get it, because where we are is that we have to escape the dollar. But you're using Bitcoin to get the dollar. We can't speak. We're not on the same wavelength. We can't talk to one another because you're in a different world. You want more dollars. I'm giving up dollars to get away from dollars. So we're just totally in different universes. How can I talk to you?
Have you heard of the phrase cashing out of Bitcoin versus Bitcoining out of cash? I thought that was so cool.
Say that again now.
So people say, "Oh, when are you cashing out of Bitcoin?" And then the response is, "No, I'm Bitcoining out of cash." I love it.
I love that.
I love it.
I never heard of that, but I love that.
It's
Because
so
a lot of
good.
people ask me like, so Oliver, when are you selling? And I'm like, sell to what?
Yeah.
Like, dude, what do you sell? The best performing thing humans have ever known.
Yeah.
Number one, so what do you sell it for? 200? The 200th one? The 20th one? Like, what do you sell number one for?
Yeah.
Like, when's the last time you saw the Mona Lisa sold for another piece of art? Like, never.
Yeah.
Like, you don't sell number one. You borrow against number one, but you don't sell number one to go to number 17. Like, what do you sell it for? The NASDAQ is the closest thing to Bitcoin's performance, and it is at 16, 17% CAGR over the past 10 years. Bitcoin, at least, I mean, we have to incorporate next year, but it's dropped a little bit. But before the bear market, it was a CAGR of 213%. So 16%, 213%. Do you sell it for that? You sell it for dollars that are losing 8 to 12% a year? Like, what do you sell it for? So, it's difficult when people are, when you try to communicate to people who are still looking at everything. They see the dollar as the ultimate prize. And so everything is just to put their dirty boot on top of it to springboard them to more dollars. You can't speak to a person like that who still is in that mindset unless you can get them to the place where, no, dude, we are escaping the dollar.
Yeah.
The dollar is our prison. It was forced on us. We didn't choose it. Just because we were born on this patch of land, they said, you were born from your mother and father. Your mother and father was a slave here. Now you're the kid from your mother and father. You're going to have to work for this piece of paper now, just like your mother and father did. And not only do you have to work for our piece of paper every single year of your life, we're going to make the value of what you work for go down every single year of your life so that we make sure that you work for the system harder every year. So the same groceries that you bought for $100, you're going to need $120 next year. The same groceries that cost you $120 this year going to cost you $130 next year. So you will have to work harder every single year of your life while you are on our plantation called the United States, or while you're on our plantation called Japan, or the UK, or Argentina, or Venezuela. Whatever plantation you're on, you're going to have to work harder every year to buy the same shit until you die. Now, the only thing that reverses that, the only thing that frees us and saves us from that is Bitcoin, because it goes in the opposite direction. And a lot of people say, well, no, Oliver, the stock market helps save us from that. No, it doesn't, because the average gain of the stock market is the same as the average gain of the decline in your purchasing power. You're running in place, dude. And only a small percentage of the population even can have. How many people in the world can own Apple? You're talking about a very small percentage of the people of the world can even have access to the NASDAQ. And for the first time, we have something where the world can have access to that is smashing all of that and going in the opposite direction. These are the things that I try to get people to understand, because if I can't get them to understand these things first, I can't get them to see the value proposition of Bitcoin. They just see it as something else to put their dirty boot on to get more dollars instead of escaping dollars. Dollarism is, we are the victims of dollarism. We are the victims of fiat. That's the dollar as the prize was sold to us. We've been bamboozled into that. We are the victims of the dollar, and we have to escape that. And Bitcoin is the escape. And if I can't get people to understand that, they'll never get it, because they're after dollars. But I do kind of thank God for them, because how will I ever get Bitcoin, more Bitcoin, if there's not someone else willing to give me their Bitcoin in exchange for these stupid dollars? So as long as that's in place, I'll take that trade every single day of my life, twice, 3 times on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Now, I say twice, 3 times on Sunday because that's usually the final dip before the rise the next week, you know. But it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm sorry for going on a rant, ma'am. I mean, it is kind of my show, but
No, that was awesome. I loved that. That was so great. I feel like it just like it hypes me up even more, man. Every time you say something about Bitcoin, it hypes me up even more. Every time I read one of your tweets, like, wow, this guy's gonna be gone at 100K. I hope not. I hope he stays. I really do.
No, I'm going. And let me just say something about that, Rajat, because I get so many questions on this. I think I remember you touching on this topic a while ago too. I think I remember. We sacrifice safety, security to do what we do. And there's a point where I think that you have to start thinking about your family members, the notoriety that's brought to you for being a Bitcoin voice. Because look, all things being equal, Bitcoin becomes the most valuable thing on planet Earth outside of gold at 175, maybe, thousand. That's a stone throws away. I believe we get there next year. I believe that Bitcoin becomes the second most valuable thing on planet Earth outside of gold next year. At this point, there's no question. As more and more people understand that Bitcoin is the most valuable thing on earth, the more anyone with Bitcoin who's known as having Bitcoin becomes not so safe or secure. I think it's a real issue. And so I want to kind of bow out before that. I want to be forgotten. I want to be forgotten before that. And, thank God online, man, you're forgotten pretty fast. But I think about these things, man. I think about when Bitcoin outstrips gold, which will happen, in my opinion, next cycle. And it is irrefutably the most valuable thing on planet Earth. And every person on earth knows it, and every person on earth assumes you have it. And if they assume you have a lot, what does that do? They'll put an X on your back. You know, I don't know, but I want to be gone. You know what I mean? I want to be gone. I don't want to have to walk down the street and worry about that. Oh, that's the Bitcoin guy. That's just not going to be me, man. You know what I mean? Not when Bitcoin's the most valuable thing in the world. No, 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 no. You know?
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really
Yeah.
good point.
So, yeah. You know,
I still do think that your content is going to be like you're posting evergreen content that people can watch 10, 15,
that's true.
20 years from now, right?
Yeah, that's
So
true. Yeah.
I think it'll be hard to forget you. I mean, as much as you may not like that, I think it'll be hard to forget you. I'm gonna try to constantly be in touch with you. I know there's other people who found so much value in in the stuff that you post, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's
I guess so.
yeah.
I guess so. I just hope that bigger voices come after. And I know that, I mean, there are bigger voices now. But I do think, at the same time, I do think that security rises along with that concern as well. So I think that one of the reasons why I've been such a big supporter of multi-sig, um, the multi-sig form of Bitcoin, is because I think that it does go a long way to making it much more difficult to have you as a physical one single point of failure. So if the world starts to understand that there's no way we can get Bitcoin by attacking this dude, then I think attacks drop off or become non-existent.
Yeah.
I think that if we could get to a place where Bitcoin almost becomes virtually impossible to take because everyone just has it multi-jurisdictionally secured, then if the world understands, if everyone understands that this is just not a stealable thing, it's the most valuable thing, but it's not a stealable thing, then the world becomes a worker for the thing, a producer of value for the thing. And so Bitcoin's ultimate security is the key to global productivity. Because if you can't steal it, and the only way to get it is to work for it, then the world becomes a worker. And the only way a Bitcoiner is going to give you a Bitcoin or give you a piece of a Bitcoin, this piece of a Bitcoin is going to reward them for the rest of their lives that they hold it. So in order for them to give up all of this future gain that's guaranteed to them in the future, you had better come to them with something freaking miraculous. You had better come with them you had better come to them with something mind-blowing, something that makes them say wow in the most vigorous way they've ever said wow before. And so the only way you can get someone else to give up their Bitcoin is to be amazing, then the whole world becomes amazing.
Yeah.
If no one's going to give it to you for the British pound, or the Australian dollar, or the Japanese yen, and the only thing they will give you Bitcoin is something of extraordinary value, then the world starts producing things of extraordinary value.
Yeah.
And so the whole productivity Bitcoin produces, in my opinion, can lead to the biggest boost in human productivity the world has ever seen. Because the only way you're going to get it is to come correct. So junk is no longer going to be sold. Inferiority is going to go away in everything, because inferiority will never get Bitcoin. Only the best will get Bitcoin. Only the most amazing thing will get Bitcoin. And so everyone's going to have to find a way to be amazing or you die.
Yeah. You know what I think people are
Wow,
gonna buy?
that's crazy.
That's insane.
Woo!
I think a
That's,
lot of Bitcoiners are gonna buy very high quality beef.
of course, man. High
I think
quality
that's
everything.
high quality everything. But I think
Everything.
Bitcoiners and beef just go so well together. It's crazy. It's like it blows my mind how many Bitcoiners just want to eat healthy food, right? Because they want to live longer. It's like your post. You do whatever you can. Like how much weight did you lose?
111 pounds, man.
111 pounds, and you did it to
Crazy,
see
right?
to be around for longer, to see where Bitcoin is going.
Yeah, man. That was a
Right?
huge motivator for me.
That's massive.
Like, dude, I'm gonna die before I see this happen.
Yeah. That's massive, and
Yeah.
I think that's what people are gonna be paying for. People are gonna be paying for ways to live longer, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think Bitcoin, well, first of all, and I have these kind of weird philosophies, man, right? So, I think I think Bitcoin brings about, I know this is a little esoteric, but I think it brings about immortality because, like, some people have been able to experience a form or version of immortality because their name lives long beyond their physical body, right? Like the Ford Foundation and the JP Morgan and this is immortality in a way. And I think that Bitcoin brings immortality to everyone, not just this small little handful of people who were able to experience that in the past. You understand? So now immortality is for everybody. I can affect my bloodline for hundreds of generations in the future if I do this correctly. That my children's 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 children will remember my name if I do this correctly. That's immortality. I can take the fruits of my labor today and send it into the future
Wow.
for 10 generations later to experience. That's immortality, dude. Bitcoin brings about immortality to the human race. And yes, there were people who, small percentage of the human race had that ability, but now everyone has that ability. That's just it's amazing. But it always starts that way. It always starts with a few and then expands to the many. And Bitcoin is that has that its time has come to expand immortality to the entire race that way, because the fruits of our labor can outlast our physical form. We have seen this in our lives. There are people still enforcing their will on their bloodline through documents in their wealth, right? They're living, their will, their desires are still living. We now have the same ability through Bitcoin.
No.
It gives us an element of the immortality that only the very, very exclusive, the very, very elite had the ability to do. And so it brings that to us. Yeah, man, I can get a bit esoteric with this stuff, man, but I see it like that,
No,
I see
it's
it like
so
that.
true. What you said is so true, right? It's like I think you actually mentioned it in one of your other podcasts where um, we now have the ability to use the same kind of cell phones, for example. Like the wealthiest people in the world use the same phones that the poorest people in the world use, right? That's what
That's right.
Bitcoin does. It evens the playing field,
That's true.
essentially,
Yes, that's very
right?
true.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And at a certain point, remember I told you back in the 80s, only the really super wealthy had those phones.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got them.
Yeah.
Same movement,
Internet access, same thing. High quality
Absolutely.
TVs, same thing. Computers, same thing. It applies to everything.
Yes. Um, do we eventually just get paid in and buy with sats? Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you would call Bitcoin becomes a unit of account. There's Bitcoinization, and there is nothing else to compare it to. So right now, because there are other forms of money, you are comparing Bitcoin's value in relationship to other forms of money. And when you do make that comparison, you see that Bitcoin is destroying every other form of money. Most people have not taken the time to look, but Bitcoin is destroying every form of money. When there is no other money to compare Bitcoin to, that's full 100% Bitcoinization, then one Bitcoin is just one Bitcoin. And so the market will determine how many sats is for this. Supply and demand dynamics from the free market will determine how many sats is this, not translating it into USD. All right. So there's nothing else in existence except Satoshis. I think that, like, I've traveled and I've seen where there's a board. I want to buy something, and there's a little board or something or a sign that gives me the price of the thing in multiple different currencies. This is the price in US dollars. This is the price in euros. This is the price in Japanese yen. And this is the price in Australian dollars, depending upon where I am in the world. And you see the different prices. Well, if you take all of those different prices away and there's just Bitcoin for the world, like, think about this. Why? There's this, I'm going to drive this point home with this. It's a biblical story, right? The story of Babylon, where the people of Babylon were building a tower up to heaven. And the gods looked down and saw that, whoa, they're getting close. We can't really have this. So to prevent the tower from actually reaching heaven, what did they do? Everyone spoke one language. They made everybody working on the tower speak different languages, and it killed the project. And so the multiplicity of languages greatly diminish the possibility of unity and communication. And it broke the whole project of reaching heaven. This is symbolic. How do you reach heaven? It's through unity. You can't reach heaven without unity. So break the unity and you won't reach heaven, right? So I see this in the way of a multiplicity of monies. Why does the human race need a multiplicity of monies? To keep us divided. It's like, okay, this is the money for that plantation called Australia, but this is the money for this plantation called the United States. We have our own money on our plantation. And Australia and Argentina has their own money for their plantation. We're all slaves. Depending upon where you live, you have your money. You didn't choose the money. The money was forced on you. And so this keeps the whole race divided. What if there's one money not controlled by any plantation? Now, what is that today? Bitcoin. And that unifies Babylon, and we finally reach heaven again. That's the way I see it. It's a unification of the whole race, because money is the ultimate language. Money is the language of value. Our whole life is built on the language of value. Everything we think about is, what's the cost of that? What's the value of that? From the time we wake up until the time we go to bed, everything is judged based on value. What's the value of me going to that interview? What's the value of me not going to that interview? What's the value of me working out? What's the value of me not working out? What's the value of me cutting my calories? What's the value of me not cutting my calories? Everything is a value proposition. The ultimate language of the human race is the language of value. Money is the language of value, but we were broken apart. Babylon was, all the languages were changed. Now we can't reach heaven. But now Bitcoin is the reuniting of all of the the straggler languages coming together to one language, Bitcoin Satoshis. And now we can continue building this tower toward heaven. That's the way I see it. I know it's philosophical. I know it's out there, but that's just the way I see it.
I completely. It's like if you. It's divide and conquer, right?
I think you've gone off the. I think you've gone off the dead end. You've gone off the deep end there, Oliver. You're gonna. Yeah, probably.
No. See, that's the thing, right? Bitcoin is so many things, and I think people just don't see they just see the money side of things, right? They just see the value going up. They don't see the fact that, as you said, unification, right? In the old system, it's a divide and conquer, right?
Divide and conquer, absolutely.
You get people to follow one protocol, and then you get other people in another country to follow another protocol. You get other people in another country to follow another protocol, and it just confuses everyone. And then on top of that, to exchange your currency, let's say you wanted to go. I went to Japan earlier this year, so to exchange my currency from Canadian dollars to Japanese yen, the bank took like 5%. Right?
Absolutely, man.
It's
absolutely
broken. Like it's corrupt.
And you needed permission from your plantation and permission from the other plantation. So one plantation said, okay, you're my slave, but I will permit you to go to another plantation. The other plantation says, okay, I know you, the other plantation slave, but we'll let you in, but we're going to take a little fee. I mean, that's the way I see it.
That's
like, dude, like we need permission to move from one piece of land to the other, and we have to pay. Like, think about it. We're paying to be human beings, but you always have to ask it, to whom? To whom are you paying to be born and to be a human being, to breathe and live on this planet? You are paying for that. You're paying someone. But now we can pay Bitcoin. And Bitcoin can take care of us every 4 years of our life forever. I mean, that's the path that I'm on right now. That's the path I'm on. Anyway, man, this has been a great conversation, man.
Amazing.
I love it, man. I love it.
Message. I was about to say I gotta head out. This was amazing.
Yeah, me too, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you popping in, though. Man, we got 2,486 people here, man.
Wow.
Looking at the number, that's crazy.
That's huge.
All right, man. Listen, I appreciate it, Raj, man. I mean, Rajat, we got to do this again. Listen, absolutely. I want to thank every single one, guys. I never give any real advance warning of these live sessions. I am flabbergasted by your generosity to show up without any warning like this at the rate at 2,500 people here logged on live. Thank you so very much. Please follow Rajat. Please, Rajat, what's your handle?
On YouTube, it's Rajat Sony Finance.
Yeah, please follow my man there. He puts out some great content. As most of you know, I'm out at 100,000, so you got me for a brief period of time, but he's the man to follow in my place. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your night, Rajat. I appreciate it, man. And the rest of you guys, go to work. You know what to do. Stack harder. Boom. Boom. Ciao. Ciao.